Hey everybody, Tom Carnell here, Carnell Knowledge. I'm back. This is a show I do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, on which I review, recommend 5 movies, a book, and 5 records. I'm back with a whole batch of stuff. If you don't know who I am, I was a buyer for Tower Records, Warehouse, and Record Factory for about 20 years. I published Carbon Nocta magazine back in the 90s, and then I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 15 or 20 years or so. Now I'm an author. You can go to my Amazon author page and find all of that stuff, short story collections, novels, all that kind of stuff. So now that that's taken care of, oh, one other thing. Don't forget to subscribe and like and hit the bell and all that other stuff. And in the description of this video, you will find links to trailers or the full movie of the movies I'm going to talk about, an Amazon link to the book I'm going to talk about, and it's a good one this week, and YouTube playlists for all the albums. So don't just take my word for it. Head over to that page and you can sample all of the music for yourself and decide whether you like it or not. Again, I'm just giving you my opinion. Okay, so that taken care of, I'm going to slide this ever so slightly over, and then I have notes, as always. So let's start with some movies. First movie from 1976. It's called Okinawa Yakuza Senso, a.k.a. The Great Okinawa Yakuza War. It's directed by Sadao Nakajima and stars Hiroki Matsukata, who is in Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins, the great Sonny Chiba, who is in things like Street Fighter, and Tsunehiko Watase, who is in Heaven and Earth, Emi Shindo, who is in Golgo 13 Assignment Kowloon, and Jiro Yabuki, who is in Akira Kurosawa's Kagemusha. It's set in 1971, 1 year before the return of power to the mainland, and the film highlights a bloody battle of Okinawa Yakuza gangsters versus the mainland system. It's a very violent tale of rival gangs in the years following Okinawa's return. Well made, although the acting is a little over the top. Even for Japanese films, it's a little over the top. Let's get this out of the way right out of the box. Sonny Chiba is a terrible actor. Like, he mostly just struts around and screams and slaps the people and knocks things out of the way. I mean, you know, for certain things, I think it works. This, he just comes off as kind of a jerk, which maybe that's supposed to be what he was supposed to be, but it's a little off-putting. There are no noble Yakuzas here, which is a thing. People are doing it, what they're doing for rather self-serving measures. And things progress pretty predictably. There is a wild murder, I will say, of a Yakuza emissary where he is run over by a car multiple times. It's almost becomes comedic. I mean, they're running him over, they're putting in reverse and backing up and running him over, then running him over and backing up and running him over. And as this is a Japanese Yakuza picture, of course, things end both tragically and fatalistically. Still, it's pretty enjoyable, and it has a good vibe, and the action is both realistic and violent. Worth seeing, especially if you like these sort of things, which I do. I thought it was fantastic. Again, I saw it on Tubi for free, so there you go. Speaking of Tubi, our next movie from 2022 is called Red Iron Road. It's directed by a grip of people, and what it is a 7-episode series of short tales based on modern European horror myths and stories, leaning toward sort of a Slavic perspective. It's more horror-based than, say, Love, Death, and Robots, but that's a pretty fair comparison. The writing is thin, undoubtedly due to the time constraints, but it's still oddly engaging and at times even humorous. The animation quality varies from segment to segment depending on who's in charge. The way I would describe it as someone is an animated Love, Death, and Robots meets Black Mirror. There's a lot of symbolism at work in this thing. I'm very impressed by what's here. It's engaging and it's smart and enjoyable and thought-provoking. I don't know why there isn't more of these things. I thought it was really fantastic. It kind of struck me. I thought it was, all right, we're going to watch a little of this and it'll be fine. But yeah, it blew me away. Good stuff. And again, on free for Tubi. The next film, again, on Tubi, they should be subsidizing my show, from 1987. This is called PEHAVY Max STRASIDLA, aka Freckled Max and the Spooks. It's directed by Gerard Jacobisco, stars Eddie Constantine, who we've talked about before on the show, but he was in Alphaville, most notably from being in Alphaville. Ferdy Mayne, who was in the Fearless Vampire Killers. Viveka Linfers, who was in Creepshow, and Flavia Bucci, who is in Suspiria, and a bunch of other stuff. Has to do with a young orphan named Max, who leaves the circus to escape his abusive foster parents. Taking refuge in a desolate castle, he gets acquainted with the most unlikely company, a vampire, a werewolf, a Frankenstein monster, an extraordinary old lady. It's based on a children's book called Frankenstein's Aunt by Alan Rune Patterson. So here's the deal on this. It originally was a 7-part, 6-hour miniseries that they cut up and made it into like 100, 110, 120 minutes. It's part of an Austrian, Czech, West German, French, Spanish, Italian co-production. Some of the set designs were done by the great Jan Svankmajer. If you know that name, then you know right what I'm talking about. Reminiscent of Fellini at times, and a lot of times reminiscent of Terry Gilliam. Wonderful costuming and set design, decidedly kid-friendly. I mean, it's borders on being just a kid's film. It has a TV movie, sort of Munsters, kind of Sid and Marty Krofft feel to it. And some of the cuts are kind of abrupt. You can tell that they cut a lot out of this to make it fit the time that they wanted, the target time. Still, what's here is goofy fun. In the end, it's all a delightful children's monster mashup tale about family and friendship and love. I recommend it for families with kids, or even if you're just a kid at heart, but make sure the kids are old enough to read. Otherwise, they're going to be a little lost. Because again, I think it's in Hungarian or something like that. Our next film from 1966, speaking of Eddie Constantine, is called Cartes sur Table, aka Attack of the Monsters, aka Cards on the Table, directed by Jess Franco, who did things like Venus in Furs, A Virgin Among the Living Dead, Vampiros Lesbos, Ilsa the Wicked Warden, and White Cannibal Queen. It also stars Francois Brion and Fernando Rey, who is in That Obscure Object of Desire and The French Connection. It's about a mad scientist who uses an army of mechanical monsters to control people who have type O blood. Shot in color, but for some reason converted to some pretty crisp looking black and white. It's the first in a long-running series, 6 in total, of the private detective Alan Pereira films. And this one its charms rest solely on the shoulders of Eddie Constantine, who's wonderful in this. More enjoyable than its sequels, I'll say that much. Unlike a lot of Franco's work, this film would probably be rated PG today. It's a French-Spanish Euro spy movie, kind of a Bond parody. Ed Constantine, who seems to be having a ball, elevates what would have been a mediocre spy thriller into something almost interesting. To give you some timeline, Alphaville by Jean-Luc Godard was made a year prior to this, and made by the same creative team who did the diabolical Dr. Z, like not even a year earlier. Or later, sorry. The film lags a little in the middle and the climax feels a little hurried. You know, it's like almost like they look at their watch and they go, oh, we got to wrap this up. Let's see, well made, not exactly original. It's a spy parody, so it's kind of you get the beats that you ask for, you know. There's a super groovy soundtrack by a guy named Paul Mizrachi, who did the music to Alphaville and God Created Woman, Death in the Garden, and Jean-Pierre Melville's Les Doulouses. Overall, it's a very enjoyable mid-60s spy flick. A little silly, at times it's kind of racist, especially towards Asians. But again, it was released in the mid-'60s, so that kind of thing is sometimes, sadly, par for the course, but enjoyable. I saw this on YouTube, I want to say, and it was for free. So up next, in a completely different tact, this is from 2002. It's called Dans ma peau, aka In My Skin. It's written, directed, and stars Marina Devan. It also stars Lauren Lucas, who is in Raw, and Leah Drucker. Has to do with a woman who sort of injures her leg at a party and starts to become super fascinated by her own body, like picking at the wound. And that soon escalates into a morbid preoccupation with the physical nature of her human condition. It reminded me of a Ray Bradbury story called Skeleton, but with skin and flesh instead of bone. The film is shocking, but it's never gratuitous, almost Cronenbergian, or akin to like Roman Polanski's Repulsion. Like, it's kind of like how you chip a tooth and you can't help but running your tongue over it. That's kind of what it deals with, but it has to do with this injury that she has, and it started to remind me of things like Trouble Every Day, but it was similar to that, but also vastly different. It was a key film in what they were calling the New French Extremity. Deals with things like obsession, addiction, and compulsion. I'm not going to bury the lead here. As she becomes more and more focused on her flesh, she starts to carve into herself with things like tins and scissors and knives and stuff, ultimately eating parts of her own body, and it's disturbing. There has some nods towards the stress of corporate culture, but the film moves slowly to begin with a lot of subtlety, but each step is profoundly disturbing in its implications. And there's a dinner scene that, I'll be honest, it's kind of a squirm fest. By then you like the girl, you kind of are on board with her story, and she spirals out of control at this client dinner with her boss and these new clients. And it really had me on the edge of my seat. We watched the girl slowly unravel, succumbing to pressures and compulsions that she doesn't and can't really understand. An uncomfortable film, but again, it isn't a gross out film. But overall, I'll tell you right out of the box, this isn't a film for everybody, but I found it to be a fascinating study of one person's spiral out of control. It's something. I just ran into a buddy of mine that works at a local co-op, and we were talking about this, and we had to talk about it in really hushed tones because there were people walking by. But he enjoyed it too, and so check it out. Again, I saw this on YouTube, and wow, it is. I was at Crypticon this weekend. I was talking to a guy from Severin Films, and they had a really nice version of it there. Yeah, he was like, "Have you seen this?" So yeah, everyone that I've talked to in the recent memory has really enjoyed this thing. Moving on to books. From 2019. I've talked about Cody Goodfellow before. This is a collection of his called The Man Who Escaped This Story. Full disclosure, like I said, I've talked about it. I'm a fan of his work. I've not read anything by Cody that isn't just head and shoulders above all the rest of the stuff that's out there. This particular is a total of 16 stories. There are 2 that are unique to the collection. Cody is known for a lot of cosmic horror stuff, but this book is so much more than that. Well written with fully realized premises. Few authors out there write with the depth and intelligence that Cody does. And I think that he is stellar, and I don't know why more people aren't singing his praises. Of course, as with all collections, even my own, the good, the bad, the ugly apply, but most of this, though, is very, very good. It's really, really stellar. That's the great thing about Cody's work, though. It's unpredictability, but also it's assured quality. Overall, a fantastic collection from one of the best writers out there working today, in my opinion. Cody's always interesting, and he has a deftness with the language that is intimidating. Let's see, moving on to records. A bunch of odd stuff this week. First record from 2013. The band is called Chequerboard. The album is called Unfolding. It's basically John Lambert as a guitarist. The music is acoustic, ambient, kind of modern classical, atmospheric, pastoral, autumnal, and melancholic. Well recorded and executed. A really fantastic record. Relaxing and introspective. It reminded me a lot of things like Ankai, Pete Kuzma, the album Leaf, Oliver Arnold's, Robin Guthrie from Cocteau Twins, Will Ackerman from Windham Hill, and also Michael Hedges from Windham Hill. Stellar stuff. This is perfect for late at night or just chilling, having dinner, relaxing at the end of the day. Next record from 2015, Thijs van Leer. The album is called Introspection. If you don't know Thijs van Leer, he is a Dutch flautist, vocalist, and keyboardist. He was in the band Focus. If you've ever heard the song Hocus Pocus by Focus, it's that yodeling song that everyone has probably heard. I think they have. Excuse me. It's almost a classical record. It's one in a series that he did. It's lovely. It's just a lovely record. Perfect for morning, afternoon, or night. Kind of a surprise if you've ever heard Focus, which is definitely a prog band. This is not a prog record. Like I say, it's more sort of classical than anything else. He does songs that are recognizable. But they're done really lovely, just really lovely. Reminding me of things like Chris Hin's, Tim Whiteweeder, the Scandinavian band Exception, Sky, John Williams band Sky, Cloud Bowling, Jan Ackerman, and the work of Jean-Pierre Rampal. Up next, 1977, the band is called Eik, E-I-K. I'm going to butcher this title. HRISLAN og STRAUMURINN. They're Icelandic progressive rock. They mix prog, funk, and sort of 70s rock and roll. It has that 70s prog sound, very organ heavy with these like soaring guitars. This is all at once both different but also vaguely familiar. The vocals are its only weak point, I'd say. Luckily, there aren't a lot of them. But it has a definite swing to it, the record. Reminded me of things like Second Movement, Duncan McKay, Goblin, the Italian prog rock band Goblin, Wigwam, Camel, Yes, Gentle Giant, Solar Plexus, and Jade Warrior. Good stuff. This is really good stuff. I just featured it on one of the shorts that I do every day. Yeah, go check it out. Go check the link out there. Give it a minute. It takes a minute to get going, but once it does, it's really, really good. Up next, 1995. Jeremy Morris is the artist. The album is called Pilgrim's Journey. This record blends 70s symphonic rock, new prog, and melodic electronic music. Very enjoyable, progressive, but still comfortable. Guitars predominant. The music is mature as opposed to just sort of wallowing in those prog cliches. It reminded me of things like the Lemon Clocks, Camel, Anthony Phillips, Mike Oldfield, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Yes, Tangerine Dream, Vangelis, and 90s era Steve Hackett. So yeah, I enjoyed this record a lot. Put it on and was really surprised. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. This was fantastic. And our last record from 2025, the group is called Deep Energy Orchestra. The album is called The Science of Sound. Now, the band is made up of members of things like the jazz band Snarky Puppy, Kansas, King Crimson, Shakti, and the Fourth Dimension. represents a culmination of global collaboration, complex composition, and genre-defined instrumentation. That's what the press release said. Gary Husband plays on this. So does Mark Lettieri. Yeah. The music is complex, but it goes down easy. I'd call it progressive and symphonic fusion, cinematic, orchestral, electronic, atmospheric and emotional, experimental and intense. Highly enjoyable and completely recommended. Reminded me of a couple of things. Again, Jade Warrior, Spangle, Solar Fields, and a band I just came across called Marriage Material that are just absolutely fantastic. And that's going to do it. A lot of stuff. I'm kind of all over the place, but that's kind of what this show does. I try to bring things to you that are different, that aren't the same things that are being touted on all the other YouTube recommendation shows. I spend a lot of time diving into playlists. I take a lot of notes from YouTube guys talking about records. Every week I go through all of the new releases, and they all get sort of dumped into a hopper that I call inbox, and then one by one. Right now, that inbox, I'll tell you, just as an aside, is at about 5,400 songs. So it's taking me a while to get through some of these, but I keep finding stuff that's just so good. And I watch a couple of movies every day, and that is something that has happened since I was a boy. Watching a lot of film, listening to a lot of music, and when that isn't happening, I'm reading a book. So my goal is to bring it all to you so that you can check it out. So please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and I'm really trying to grow this channel because I'd like to get the word out on some of this stuff to as many people as I can. So that's going to do it for me today. I'll be back in a couple of days with more stuff. I've got a whole slew of new stuff that I want to talk with you about. And also be sure to check all my shorts. Every day I'm putting up 2 movies and a record. Some of the stuff is a bleed over from the week shows, but yeah, what are you going to do? All right. I'll see you in a couple of days, and take care.